UFT Systems, we are the service provider of the BYD battery box. We are doing this since the very first battery box, so since 2015, so 11 years ago. That's also when I started. Um, so I've been a long time with the battery box. So if you have questions, I hope I'm able to answer them. Yeah, and we are doing after-sales service trainings like this one, pre-sale support. So whatever you need local contact for, we are there for you. But even more interesting than us is definitely BYD. Nowadays, one of the 100 biggest companies in the world. Last year was ranked 91, but if you look at the growth pattern, I guess will be able to climb some ranks this year again. And the main driver for this is innovation. BYD has more than 120,000 people in R&D, and with that, they release every day more than 10 patents. So there's a huge innovation machine, let's say. You see that in different business areas, obviously also in the cars, but also in stationary storage. One of the innovation, for example, was a modular design. We brought it 2016, 2017 with the first generation HV. And if you look at the residential landscape for batteries, that design is quite popular also now with some other participants. But they was originally introduced by BYD. And many innovations are inside the battery, so what you don't really see, but the inside is what matters. And the good thing about BYD batteries, you can be sure that there is BYD inside, so BYD battery cells. We claim that BYD is also the battery manufacturer on the market. There are not too many manufacturers actually that produce the battery cells themselves. However, the battery cell is a core component and the main driver for every battery. And BYD has a very long experience with lithium iron phosphate batteries since 2002. So now, many years, more than 20 years, which for lithium iron phosphate is a dinosaur, basically. So very long experience, more than, here it says 10 million. Now it's about 15 million cars in the field. So very proven technology. For stationary storage, we're also in the field nearly 20 years with more than 75 gigawatt hours. For the battery box alone, we have 1.5 million systems installed, most of them in Europe. I mean, we're doing the service, so we see everything, but we can say that our batteries are really safe because after the 1.5 million systems installed, we never had a leakage or a fire or anything. And that's in the end, you have many safety areas, but at the end, it's about the battery cell. And we can say our cells are very high quality and very safe because of our experience. And with 1.5 million systems, believe me, we have seen everything. So we had floods, we had mechanical damages, for example, when a forklift drives into a battery. We had everything that could be done with a battery was done wrong. So with 1.5 million systems, we've seen it all. One point why BYD can deliver such a high quality is because they control every step of the way, from minerals, so from the raw materials, through the whole battery cell manufacturing process, the battery management system, and the full product, if it's stationary or the car, all the way to recycling. And for recycling, I think our end of life concept is also, yeah, very interesting and probably more than most manufacturers are doing. We're building currently, we already have lines for repair and second life use. Those are pilot projects because we hardly have any batteries coming back to us, perhaps after a flood or similar. We have some batteries coming back. But otherwise, the batteries are now 11 years and all are still working. But we are testing this already, and we're currently building one of the first lithium iron phosphate recycling plants in Europe. Currently, it would still be the first one up to our knowledge, but yeah, it will be ready end of this year. So let's see if somebody will be quicker or if we are actually the first. Now I have a video. It might not play perfectly for you. However, you should still get an impression. And what you might see, I was in that factory myself about a year ago. It's a very impressive factory. It's several soccer fields big and fully automated. And there's a huge know-how going into this factory where thousands of machines need to work perfectly in perfect synergy. And the interesting thing here, for example, is you have the cells, and what you see here is in the same factory, you directly put the cells in a pack and then into the system. So it's a fully vertical integration of the production. So in goes the raw material and out goes the finished product with more or less zero manual work. And this, by the way, is MC Cube. It's a 500 kilowatt hour cabinet. You saw it's packed with blade cells. That's why there's such a high energy density. And you will see that high energy density also in the HVP, which we'll show you in a minute. There is basically from BYD batteries for any use case. So for residential, what you see on the left side, for commercial, but or utility, you will find fitting battery for any need right now. For the products, for the battery box. The battery box is on the market since 11 years now. Again, we have 1.5 million systems out there. Yeah, market leading battery in Europe. And the 10 years experience, they have quite some advantages. They show what we're claiming here. They show it in real life. They show the safety. We can say that we never had any incident. We claim that the batteries can be extended anytime, so also after years, and this is proven every day in hundreds of extended systems. And we have batteries in all scenarios all around the world. The warranty, which so far was always 10 years, is no problem to reach. That's why now we're bringing, that's a bit of a spoiler already, 15 years warranty. And the reliability. That's probably the main driver why the battery box was so successful, is reliability in the field. Once you have it installed, normally it just runs. So some further core advantages. You see it in the design. It's a modular design, so flexible capacities. You can extend any time. And again, when we say you can extend any time, it's possible after 3-5 years. It doesn't matter. And with the old products, BYD has also proven that they also support the availability of the extension items, also years after the product was canceled. With the old HV, for example, we had 4 years after the product was canceled, we still had extension materials available. Flexible installation, we'll get to that. We combine our batteries with different inverter partners. And this year again, we're participating in the storage inspection from a university in Germany, the HTV Berlin. And this is the only comparison among batteries that I know of that you can really compare the quality of batteries. If you know anything else, please write it in the chat. It would be very interesting for me. This test is very interesting because it follows strict guidelines as the efficiency guidelines. So many different parameters are tested. And this is not tested by manufacturers, but by external entities, like universities or the TUV. And then you have like 50 parameters, like standby consumption, the different efficiencies at different power levels, and so on. And then this university is calculating one value out of it, of those 50 complex parameters. That's the SPI, which gives basically the overall efficiency for the systems. And this is especially important for end customers. Here, for example, there is one system with efficiency label G and one with efficiency label A. And you see that customers can save the loan with a higher efficiency of 180 euros a year. This is a bit market dependent. This study was done for Germany. But in the warranty time, this would already award for nearly 2,000 euros. And in the lifetime of the batteries, this can be several thousand euros. We are reaching efficiency label A, but also the efficiency label G that is shown here is not, let's say, the worst battery in the market. It's from market shares, probably ranked second place in Europe. So very important for customers, the efficiency. Besides that, we have systems really in any application, residential, obviously, utility. We have systems in the Arctic, so very far north, 78 degrees in Spitzbergen. And in Africa, many systems supporting the grid or establishing a grid. So a very large experience. All right, and this is where I want to stop my introduction, and now we're getting into the products, where I hand over to Marco. I'll stop my screen. Marco,
yes,
you will take over, or should I say something about
HPP? I started the sharing of the presentation, so can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, as Florian introduced, I am Florian's colleague. I work for EFT, and I would like to do a deep dive into the fourth generation with a special focus on HVE and Powerbox, the first integrated solution. However, we will also touch other new products, HVB and HVS Plus, HVM Plus. We are currently on the fourth generation of BYD products, which brings a new platform, which is called BYD Energy, and it communicates with a communication stick. So we left beside us and a little bit behind us the third generation, and then we will deep dive into the fourth generation. So starting from the HVB could be considered the pinnacle of BYD's batteries because there's a flexible capacity, as with all of BYD's batteries, with different combinations depending on the inverter which is connected, and the possibility to connect up to 3 towers in parallel. This peculiarity is common to all of BYD's high voltage batteries, the possibility to have up to 3 towers to check the inverter compatibility, especially when the inverter is not produced by BYD. And this is how the module looks like. We can see this piece of beauty, if I may, with the handles which are actually tucked into each of the modules when doing the assembling. Assembling, which is common to all of the BYD high voltage batteries, does not require any cabling. This is very important in terms of simplicity of installation. And as I mentioned, these modules and this new battery is particularly important in BYD's portfolio because it integrates BYD's blade cells in a cell-to-pack structure. These same LFP cells can be found also in BYD's electric cars. And why did I say that this is the pinnacle of BYD's portfolio? Because it is the highest range LFP cells with characteristics which are common to all of BYD batteries. In terms of security, this is the highest demanding security test where we can see an LFP cell in BYD in the blade format. This is pretty wide, so it is a format used in electric cars. And you can see during the perforation there is absolutely no alteration in terms of safety, appearance, and temperature, except for a raising of a few Celsius degrees. The same cannot be said for the NCM cells, which is a nickel, cobalt, manganese. On the left-hand side, instead, LFP stands for lithium ferrophosphate, which is a technology which BYD has been pioneering for the last 20 plus years, since 2002 actually. So again, a super long expertise into this technology. As it was mentioned before, it does not require assembling. A BYD high voltage battery does not require any cabling. And this also applies, obviously, to the HVB. And there is a BCU which allows cable exit from both sides. And this BCU is also shared with the sisters HVS Plus and HVM Plus, which we will see very soon. Another advantage of the fourth generation, common to all of the batteries belonging to the fourth generation, is the possibility to expand an existing system at any given SoC, because we have to know that BYD manufactures the cells and the modules and then charge them at about 30% SoC. So because these modules are connected in serial, previously with the HVS and HVM, we had to make sure that the SoC of the existing tower was compatible, so to speak, to the SoC of the new module in terms of 30% roughly. So in order for them to match. This is no longer required. In fact, during the charging process, there is a strategy built into the BCU and into the modules themselves, which is aligning roughly 5% per charging cycle. Other than that, it comes, as it was mentioned before by Florian, with a 15 years of warranty, because BYD, having so much experience in the LFP technology, can safely guarantee the battery, the HVB battery, and the HVE, spoiler, for 15 years of warranty and with an extended operating temperature. BYD extended the previous operating range, which was -10 plus 50 to -20 plus 50 Celsius degrees. Now, moving to the HVS Plus and HVM Plus, which are the sisters of HVB, what do we find? Well, we find some capacities which are extremely similar. Actually, they are exactly the same compared to the previous generation HVS and HVM. So where's the difference? Well, on the paper, they look extremely similar, except for the different BCU, but they have the same general outlook, the same voltage, the same current, the same power, same operating temperature. So where's the difference? Well, we can see the difference in the details, actually. So yeah, externally, they are exactly the same, except for a millimeter here and there, but we have a different BCU, which was 1.0, 2.0 for the HVS and HVM. It has been upgraded to a shared BCU with HVB. We have an upgraded communication system, which before it was relying on the portal data from the inverter. So the monitoring of an HVS, HVM was happening from the inverter itself, or with a local connection to the wireless hotspot provided by the BCU. Now there is a common platform, as it was mentioned before, which is called BYD Energy, which is giving us the possibility to communicate to the battery through this communication stick. Again, possibility to extend an HVS plus, HVM plus at any SoC, as we have seen with the HVB, and an initial planned compatibility, which is expected to grow and consolidate over time. Because let's not forget that the HVS, HVM are super solid products which have been in the market, and they still are for the past 4 years, 4 to 5 years. So they had the possibility to build an extensive compatibility list. So now we have an initial compatibility with Coastal Cacao Furnace and a compatibility table, which we will see later on. Again, certifications, the very latest standards for the HVS Plus, HVM Plus, also HVB, HVE, and some peculiarities. No need to dive too much into detail for the parallel connection. As it was mentioned, we have an unified compatibility list, which is shared between HVB, HVS Plus, HVM Plus, with its version, and it is constantly growing with a minimum configuration and maximum configuration depending on the inverter, single phase, 3-phase, and so on.
Marco? Oh,
yes.
Sorry. Yeah, continue. Sorry.
Okay. So that was an overview on HVB, HVS Plus, and HVM Plus, and with just a mention that HVB, as we saw, has 15 years of warranty, while HVS Plus, HVM Plus carry on with the standard industry de facto standard 10 years of warranty. Now, moving on to the Powerbox and HVE, which is the main focus of today's presentation. Well, this is a milestone, if I can say that, because BYD, been known since forever from making LFP cells and batteries, has stepped into the inverter market, introducing the Powerbox, which is coming with both a single-phase and 3-phase versions. Right now, availability for the single phase, and then later in the near to medium term, there will be also availability of the 3-phase inverter. As it can be expected, these inverters cover a wide range of applications, so we can go from 3 to 6 kilowatt for the single phase with the different in-between sizes, while on the other hand, from 5 to 15 kilowatt for the 3-phase. Being a single-phase system and a 3-phase system, we have a different compatibility set, which is ranging from a minimum configuration on the HV up to a maximum configuration for the single phase. The same applies for the 3-phase. And possibility to have in parallel up to 3 towers, because we know that we have seen that BYD has always allowed up to 3 towers in parallel with the use of combiner box for the DC connection. Now, moving a little bit closer and a little bit more in depth into the system, we will start by the HVE, where we can already appreciate that nice silhouette looking from a side. First, the peculiarity of this new battery is that it comes with two different sizes. So we have two modules, 4.2 kilowatt hours and 6.4 kilowatt hours, which can be combined. And this is already a difference, which is giving a distinction of feature, compared to not only HVS and HVM, but also HVB, HVS plus, HVM plus. What is the advantage? The advantage is to be able to almost tailor make a tower, tailor-made actually, depending on the need of the customer. Because we can, combining these two capacities, we can have roughly 2 kilowatt hours steps between different configurations, so we can actually give the customer what he really exactly needs. And we can also, we will see later on, we can also start from a lower capacity for X number of reasons and then expand it later on. Because one of the advantages, let's not forget, is that BYD does not put any limitation into the expansion of an existing system. It does not have any impact on the warranty conditions. As we said before, as we've seen before, the HVE warranty is standard 15 years, but actually we have seen that BYD has a super long LFP experience. So the life design of the HVE, as well as also the HVB, but can be extended also to HVS plus, HVM plus, is not the nominal warranty, because the system is not expected to stop to work the day after the end of the warranty. In fact, the LFP cells have, among various features, a very long design of life. Passive cooling, as with all of the other batteries we have seen so far, IP65 protection, which has been stepped up from IP55 in the HVS, HVM, and an extended range of operating temperature, because we have seen a -20 plus 50 for the HVB, -10 plus 50 for the HVS, HVM, also there. Sisters of the first generation, but we have -20 plus 55 for the HVE. We have seen it before, the silhouette of the HVE. We have 140 millimeters of depth, which is even less than our smartphones. So it opens up the possibility for installations in places where it was not possible before. For reference, we have 298 millimeters in the HVS and HVM. So this is less than half. Again, continuing the advantages of the HVE, we have not only a lowering in the depth, but also a lower weight. For comparison, on the left-hand side, you can see the maximum configuration, the highest expansion of an HVM, which is roughly 22 kilowatt hours, weighing about 300 kilograms. On the HVE, we have 5% more capacity, 23.5, and roughly 70 kilograms less. This can be translated into the opportunity of also wall mounting an HVE. Obviously, consideration to be done on the type of wall, because then it could be required to have the chemical fissures, for example. But the system being so narrow and being so compact can also be mounted on the wall. Mounting on the wall, which is allowed with an optional kit, which is composed of this cover sealing, actually hiding 3 huge and sturdy wall brackets. We will see better in a detailed slide later on. Again, we mentioned it before, so we have the possibility to expand also an HVE as the other products from the first generation at any given SoC. So this feature is common to all of the products. And here we can see a slide from the datasheet where we can see all of the possible combinations. And this is what I was referring when I said 2 kilowatt hours steps, starting from the minimum configuration of 6.4 kilowatt hours, supported by the single phase up to 23.5 feature and combination supported by the three-phase inverter. It is actually not a mistyping here. For example, you can see that some combinations are duplicated. That because it depends on how they are obtained from two 6.4 modules rather than from three 4.2 modules. So to sum it up, we have LFP technology, where BYD has been pioneering since 2002. Latest standards, because we also have pressure valves built into the modules, not because there was any safety concern, because it was mentioned 1,500,000 battery box systems installed in the last 10 years, zero incident, zero security concerns. And the previous gen didn't have this type of valve. But the latest security standards also require it. And so BYD has upgraded the system, also including this valve. And we have seen the ingress protection, the 15 years of warranty, and the platform BYD Energy as a heart of the system, which is also giving us the hook to talk about the inverter, because HVE, let's not forget, is designed to be compatible with the power box, and the power box is designed and is supporting the HVE only. So power box, single phase, three phase, these are the key points in common between both of them. They have been gathered together. So it is a new gen inverter. So we are expecting a high DC current wherever it is, be it from the PV, be it from the battery. We are expecting an extended DC range. Later on, we will see also a few numbers. And possibly the ability to connect in parallel more than one inverter. So this feature, I believe I mentioned it before, is planned to be released about in Q1 2026. So it will be implemented into the firmware. Not only that, modern inverter, blackouts can happen. Different manufacturers have different systems in order to have a backup configuration. With the power box, it is on board on the inverter. The functionality is called the EPS output. So there's a separate AC output on the inverter, and it is providing full backup, because the backup is of the nominal power of the inverter. Internally, there are near instantaneous contactors, so they, at the blink of an eye, they open and close. So translating it, if we have a lightning bulb, it will be always on, to make it short. And then high peak output current power, actually. That means that not only we can have the nominal power from the EPS port, but we can also extend it for a short period. And later on, we will see it. 15 years of warranty on the HVE is great, but also the inverter has some benefit when the inverter is connected to the HVE. In fact, 5 years is a nominal warranty on the inverter. However, when the inverter is connected to a compatible battery, formerly HVE, and connected to the monitoring system, then it automatically benefits from 5 years of additional warranty. No need to do any registration, no need to do anything except for the commissioning of the system. And everything is done automatically. Easy installation, everything is included. Inverter, we need a meter. We mentioned the communication stick. Everything is in the scope of delivery of the inverter. We don't need to buy any separate product or code or run into the risk of finding a meter out of stock. Again, as we said, BYD Energy, new common platform. So we have a platform where we can interact remotely. We can do firmware upgrade and also monitoring, if required, check also error messages, and then do proper troubleshooting. Yeah, we have seen the sizes before. So what we would expect from a residential, but also small CNI, small, not professional, yeah, small, how can I say, industrial installation is here. And I would like to have your focus on this line on the right-hand side, because traditionally, as we said, BYD has been producing batteries, and there was no restriction on the usage of the batteries, be it in on-grid application, off-grid application, backup situation. The battery is there to do whatever the inverter wants to do. However, here we are talking also about inverter, and BYD is not restricting the usage scenario of the inverter itself, allowing also an off-grid situation without any warranty limitation. And this is also a nice characteristic which is distinguished and setting apart the power box. Again, overview from the bottom side of the single phase. Obviously, everything which has to be there is there, of course. A switch, the two strings inputs, battery connections, USB port, grid AC, EPS AC. But we can also appreciate a generous aluminum sink, heat sink, which is actually giving us also, how can I say? It is also giving us the idea and the build quality on this inverter, because we don't have a super tiny inverter where the heat is building up quickly. In fact, this inverter is passively cooled, and we are happy to have a nice contact area to exchange the heat. The same applies for the three-phase, and yeah, more or less the same communication ports. However, just to catch your attention on these two, maybe it is not the most technical word in English, definition in English, but these two rubbers, which are hiding two ports. And later on, we will talk about this again. Externally, the inverter comes with three LEDs, which can give us a feedback on the status of the inverter. For example, on grid, off grid, doing checks, rather than communication established to the BMS and to the meter, or a faulty error state, which has to be checked and diagnosed. Now, to put the specs into perspective and to have a quick overview between the single phase and the three phase, here you can see this chart, which is giving us at a glance the possibility to see the data. Starting by the PV oversizing, because we know that oversizing the PV can be useful, is useful. So we can have from 200% up to 150%, depending on the specific size and power of the single phase. On the other hand, we have the three phase, which can be oversized 150% flat across all of the line. Two MPPTs inputs, each one with one string connected across all the line. However, here we start to get a little bit of differences in the 12 and 15 kilowatt, as it was introduced before when I talked about those two rubbers on the bottom. Those actually were covering the third string input, which is basically a parallel connection of the strings directly at the MPPT1 on the 12 and 15 kilowatt inverter. Again, we have a modern inverter. We are expecting a high amperage on the photovoltaic, so we have 16 amperes on the single phase and the 24 on the three phase, with 32 on the 12 and 15 kilowatt inverter. The same can be said on the battery side, charge and discharge. And later on, we will see a nice chart. Again, extended DC voltage, and what was mentioned in those bullets before. So not only we have the nominal output power from the EPS port, but we also have the possibility to draw up to 200% for a period shorter than 10 seconds on the single phase, and up to 150% for a period shorter than 60 seconds on the three phase. And then obviously IP65 and IP66, depending on single phase and three phase. So that was to give some numbers. Practically, when we have a single phase inverter, thanks to the extended and the low DC voltage, we can have just the 6.4 kilowatt hour module, which is actually combining voltage and amperage, which is giving us 4 kilowatt in charge and discharge. This little thing, which is weighing about 70 kilograms. So this module can also be hung on the wall with a wall mounting kit, which we said before. Yes, I mentioned that the solidity, the thickness of the wall has to be checked. However, when we are talking about a 6.4 kilowatt hours battery, which is weighing about 70 kilograms, it can be usually found, a way can be usually found to put it on the wall. Now, matching the 35 amp from the HVE with the 35 amp from the single phase, we obtain this chart, which is telling us that, as we have seen, 6.4 is already saturating the capacity, the power of the 3 and 3.7 kilowatt inverter, and stopping that at 4 kilowatt. If we consider a roughly 10 kilowatt hours, which is a capacity which can be usually installed in a residential context, then we actually exceed the output of the single phase 6 kilowatt inverter, because doing the calculation at 10.7 kilowatt hours can provide 6.7 kilowatt of power. So we have, or even some room to exceed, the 6 kilowatt inverter. The same has been done with a three-phase inverter, crossing 35 amp from the HV with 25 from the 5 to 10 kilowatt power box TH, rather than the 30 amp on the 12 and 15 kilowatt power box TH. And yeah, basically it is just a calculation here, so we can reach almost 13 kilowatt on the three-phase inverter. Excuse me. Possibility to connect up to 3 towers in parallel, which have to be of the same type, of course, but also configuration, with one inverter, which equals to, on the three-phase, about 70 kilowatt hours. However, when we extend the possibility to have 2 more inverters, we can reach some CNI capacities, technically speaking and practically speaking. So a system which is super flexible, covering from roughly 6 kilowatt hours of the young couple needing a system, easy, small space, little energy needs and requirements, or a much bigger context. Three-phase inverter is coming with a three-phase meter, of course, supporting unbalanced outputs, and the three-phase meter has external CTs, and a nice little feature is the ability and possibility built into the firmware, so that the meter can detect if L1, L2, L3 have been maybe reversed and swapped. So the meter can be self-recognized, the phases, and also the possibility to have the inversion on the reading of the CT. That was an in-depth commercial technical overview on the power box and the HVE. I would like just to show how easy it is to actually install the HVE, and we will see also with the power box. So the scope of the delivery of the BCU and base includes the handle, which are necessary for hooking and lifting the modules. And this is the optional wall mounting kit, which I was referring to before. So we have a cover, and again, hiding the 3 wall brackets, super sturdy. I touched them, I've seen them, and you can take my words from it. Roughly 0.5 centimeters of thickness. And M10 screws, which are used to secure the wall brackets underneath the BCU. And just a nice little touch, the M10 screws actually have Loctite, the blue one, so which you usually find in the engines, where you have vibrations and so on. So super attention to the details. Now, unboxing the product, starting laying the base, leveling the feet, then assembling the HVE and wall securing the HVE to the wall. Or on the other side, we can see how the assembly is done on the wall itself. So first we secure the wall brackets to the bottom, to the underneath of the BCU, then we fix it on the wall, and then we carry on with the assembly. Oh, not sure if I mentioned it before, but probably yes. But I would like to catch your attention here. The hooks which are on the side of the modules are also duplicated on the back of the BCU, so that you, after installing the HVE, can hide the handles behind the BCU, and you will find them there on site, available when you have to expand the system. Connecting the PE, crimping the DC cables, common practice. We just have an RJ45 for the communication to the inverter, and then 2 more for the parallel communication with the master and slave, following the master and slave principle, which can be seen here. This is a common feature, a shared design with HVB, HVS, HVM, their plus versions, and so on. Again, just 2 wires from the HVE to the inverter. One thing to note is that after 12 hours of activity, the LED turns off. So, because the basic concept is that the monitoring will happen through an application, so we don't need to have the LED to be blinking for potential 15 years or even more. So we can even save a little bit of energy there. Power box installation is following the same layout of the HV installation. We start from the scope of delivery. We have the communication stick in the box. We have the meter. As we said, we don't need to order anything else. Crimping of the DC connectors. We go then to the crimping of the battery DC connectors, and then we connect the AC grid at 10 square millimeters for the AC grid connector. On the EPS, we have 4 square millimeters for the EPS output. And then, as simple as it gets, 2 cables to connect the BMS and 2 cables to connect the meter, which can be seen here in the detailed overview of the communication port. CAN bus for the BMS, RS485 for the meter. And yeah, 2 cables coming from the inverter on the communication port going to the meter. Actually, the single phase inverter will be supplied with a single phase energy meter, which has external CT. So this is something to consider, because BYD has planned it for the UK market and also for the European market later on. So in the UK there will be external CT. And communication stick, we have mentioned it before. The communication stick is basically an USB proprietary stick, okay, which is then secured on the lower part of the inverter, and it is providing Wi-Fi connection to the cloud platform or Ethernet cabled connection. Not only that, also Bluetooth connectivity, and we will see it later on. BYD Energy is available for Android, Apple, and this is the QR code pointing towards BYD Energy website. And BYD Energy has a very simple concept. It comes, when you download it, it gives you the possibility to choose an installer account or an owner account. So depending on whose role the person has, then you can create the installer or the owner account. Creating an installer account generates a company code, which is then sent via email from BYD Energy server, and it gives you the possibility also to have multiple installers working for your company, belonging to the same main registration. Obviously, if it is the first registration, there will be no previous company code, so you would just flag this tick box and saying I don't have a company code. Of course, we can define an owner of a system when we have a serial number and a product, to bind for the customer. For this reason, when we want to create the owner account, we have to scan the serial number, and it is mandatory. System commissioning is super simple. It is happening via BYD Energy through the installer account, obviously, and at the opening of the application, we choose the product we want to commission, be it a Powerbox HVE, be it HVS Plus, HVM Plus, HVB, and then we are guided through various steps. The first one, the initial one, is scanning the serial number of the brain. What is the brain? The brain is where we have the communication stick connected. If the communication stick is connected to the inverter, we scan the inverter serial number. If we are talking about an HVB, we have the stick connected to the HVB, we scan the serial number of the HVB. And then we are guided, basically. This is the various, basically here we will see the serial number, which we scanned. If everything is successful, depending on the various troubleshooting, which might be necessary. For stupid one, have the Bluetooth turned on, of course, ensure everything is wired properly, and then we can actually establish a connection via Bluetooth. So we fill the system details, name of the system, country where it is installed, which is bringing the grid regulation, and then we can move on to the properties of the different components, starting from the inverter, the battery connected, checking if the SOC is detected, filling the PV details in terms of peak power, and then we are presented to the firmware upgrade page, where basically we have the possibility during commissioning to do the firmware upgrade, which is always advisable when there are firmwares which are available, to ensure that everything is upgraded. Actually, this is only for the Italian market, so we can skip it because this is an IPS test which is required by the Italian regulation, by the Italian grid rule, actually. And we go to the last settings of the inverter, which are the operating mode, by default self-use. We can double check the peak power. We can set a feed-in if required, and we can enable or disable the EPS. So in this step, if we had a lightning bulb or something more, a priority line with whatever attached to it, it would be automatically be fed by the inverter. Have the possibility, the communication stick is bringing the possibility to connect the system online, so we can do so by choosing Wi-Fi or Ethernet. And I hope the battery on my headset is lasting enough. Please let me know if you will not hear me at some point. At the end of the commissioning, we have this information, this note, which is just telling us that we are locally connected via Bluetooth. So we have a direct local communication to the system. However, in order to be able to access the system remotely, we are introduced into the authorization concept, which means having the owner to create his account and send us an authorization, which is a one-time process, in order for us to be able to access the system remotely. Remotely could mean even I am there, but I disconnect Bluetooth. I am already remotely for the system. So authorization concept, it requires nothing more than creating the owner account, and then the owner will go in a specific section of BYD Energy, look up for the email address of the installer, hit authorize, and the installer will, on his counterpart of BYD Energy, will touch accept. And the binding, so to speak, the authorization process has been managed. BYD Energy, of course, has monitoring and data analysis abilities in terms of possibility to enter to the different systems that an installer has commissioned or an owner actually owns, see instantaneous values, see error codes, and when they happen, and also, of course, perform firmware upgrades, which can be done during commissioning or also after commissioning. Again, even remotely from the installer, provided, given that the installer has received the authorization, as we said before. Which resources do we have? We have on EFT download section, which is replicating the documentation available also on BYD Energy website. We have everything necessary, not only datasheet manuals, but we also have marketing materials. For example, a video presentation, render pictures, and so on and so forth. Obviously, dealing somehow on the inverter side, when it comes to the HVE, there will be more material on the power box product category. So we will not have BYD Energy category with the HVE, because that type of commissioning and communication is done through the inverter. So that's why it is chosen to have it on the inverter side, on the inverter section. BYD has also a PV configurator. That PV configurator at the moment can be accessed through this link, but there are a couple more links with the same format. And in order to be able to access the PV configurator, we need to have the credential of BYD Energy as an installer. So, of course, downloading BYD Energy and creating an installer account does not, of course, mean that there is any kind of obligation, in terms of installing and commissioning a power box and HVE. However, it is an important step, an essential step right now, in order to be able to access the configurator. And the configurator also has the possibility to be translated into other languages. The main one, of course, is English. And it is very interesting because I don't have a slide here to show you, but you can expect it to to ask you to input the data which are necessary. So the yearly consumption, the night consumption, to check also on the to also ensure that the consumption during the production time can be taken into account. You can input the different PV panels, and then the configurator will, of course, match all the data with the specs of the different components. However, there is a nice feature which I've not seen somewhere else, is that after chewing all this data, there is also a nice cross between a data set where you can see the sweet spot between inputs provided and the number of panels, for example, which are ideal for that specific scenario. Because increasing the number of panels might not be so beneficial in terms of extra production of energy. At the same time, having a number of panels which is a little bit too low might not be enough in order to satisfy the needs which have been inserted into the configurator. So this is a very nice feature. That was all from the presentation of the Powerbox and HVE. I just wanted to mention not only that there is a PV configurator, there is actually also an online platform which in its current shape has more of a monitoring in terms of data and troubleshooting error codes approach. In the future, BYD is working also on a portal as we are more familiar with them, with the nice little graph and the colors. But right now, all that type of monitoring can be done extensively in the app. So we have the possibility to see the different curves with colors and enable, disable PV production, energy feeding, energy draw from the grid, and so on and so forth. So that was to give you also a complete overview from the online resources in terms of portal and possibility to go somewhere in a website and be able to see something from the computer. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Now we would be available for any questions. If you have questions, please still write them in the chat. But also I will stop the recording, and you can also join here by voice. Yeah, if you don't have any questions already, thank you very much.